I was still half asleep when I stepped out onto my porch and found 30 strangers sipping champagne on my front lawn. Not near it, on it. Some guy in a Panama hat raised his glass like I was part of the entertainment. "You must be the groundskeeper," he said, smiling like I was about to hand him a brochure. I blinked. He waved his glass at my porch. "Incredible job restoring the Pressler house. Truly beautiful work." Pressler house? That's when I noticed the banner strung between my oak trees. "Welcome to the Pressler house, a living history experience. Sponsored by Bridal Creek HOA." I thought I was hallucinating, except then a woman in a sun hat started filming my damn house. Then another one asked me if they were allowed to peek inside the parlor before the next tour. That's when I lost it. "This is my house. My name is Elijah Maris. What the hell is going on?" A short, silver-haired woman broke off from the group and stepped toward me. Linen blouse, sunglasses, polished and cold like a wine mom who's seen some things and buried them under a $300 facial. "Elijah," she said with a smile that didn't touch her eyes, "you really should have checked your email. I bought this house 3 years ago at a bank auction. It was a crumbling mess. Roof leaking like a politician under oath, windows busted, squirrels living in the attic rent-free. Most folks saw a teardown. I saw bones. I was just out of rehab, 6 months sober and broken every way but hope. All I wanted was something real to rebuild, something that wouldn't give up on me if I didn't give up on it. This house had belonged to some prominent family. I didn't care. I wasn't buying the name. I was buying the silence, the space, the chance to earn every nail back into place with my own 2 hands. I sanded the floors myself, rebuilt the shutters, rewired the electrical after watching 12 hours of YouTube and one very bad night that ended with a fire extinguisher. The porch? That porch was sacred. That's where I celebrated 1 year clean. Just me, my dog Gus, and a bottle of root beer in a whiskey glass. Most important part of the whole property is the old glass cabinet in the front room. Original from 1880-something. I turned it into a photo wall of my second life. Races I ran sober, furniture I restored, people I didn't lose. Every time I looked at it, I remembered, I built this, I chose this, I belong here. And now, apparently, according to that damn banner and a bunch of HOA strangers with picnic baskets, I was just part of the tour. The very next morning, there's a knock on my door like it's a damn UPS delivery, 2 short taps and a pause like they expect me to be thrilled. I open the door and find a clipboard held by perfectly manicured hands, and behind it, Lydia Pressler. Now, Lydia isn't new to me. We've exchanged, let's call them polite stares, at the farmer's market and a few tense moments over the mailbox when she once dropped an HOA flyer in mine. I told her flat out that my house wasn't part of the HOA. She smiled like I'd said something adorably incorrect. This time, she's holding what looks like an official packet. "Elijah," she starts, chipper as fake spring flowers, "we're so thrilled about your participation in the Living Heritage program. I brought your orientation folder." I don't take it. I didn't participate in anything. She pauses, blinking slow like a lizard about to unhinge its jaw. "Well, the community board approved your property's inclusion last month. You really should check your email more often." Then she tries to hand me a laminated badge. I kid you not, it says, "Caretaker, Pressler House." I laughed, out loud. This is my house. I'm not a caretaker. I'm the owner. She does that tight little museum director smile she's so good at. Of course, but the house is of historical significance. You do understand, don't you, that homes like this are cultural artifacts? It's a privilege to be part of something bigger. "Lady, I bought this house at a bankruptcy auction. No one gave a crap about its significance then." She didn't flinch. "Exactly, and now it's being appreciated. Don't worry, the program is fully funded by HOA resources. You won't be responsible for anything except, well, basic compliance." Compliance with what? Her smile widened just a little too much. "Oh, you know, appearance standards, visitation schedules, interpretive signage." Interpretive signage? I shut the door in her face. Not slamming, just firm enough that she couldn't mistake it. An hour later, I walked out to check my mailbox. And there it was. A little bronze plaque had been drilled directly into my front fence. Historic landmark, Pressler House, established, 1893, with a QR code that linked to some HOA tourism site. They didn't even spell my name right. I stared at it, breathing like I was trying to keep a balloon from popping. Then I noticed something worse. A small easel, maybe knee-height, placed just beside my walkway, neatly laminated. It had a picture of my porch from before the restoration, one I had taken and posted on my private Instagram. Caption: "Experience the original craftsmanship of this lovingly restored family estate. Open weekends, 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. Weekends, plural. I picked it up and walked it straight back into the house. I didn't break it, not yet, but I did lean it face down against the wall, like a painting of something I wasn't ready to destroy. Not because I respected it, because I wanted it as evidence. That was the first violation, and I knew damn well it wouldn't be the last. About 4 days after the plaque incident, I came home from a supply run and nearly backed into a goddamn minivan in my driveway. It wasn't mine. There were 3 cars parked up near my house. Total strangers. A couple with a toddler in a baby carrier, a teenager holding a DSLR camera, and some older guy with binoculars. Just walking around my lawn like it was a botanical garden. I didn't even get a hello, just a wave like I was the park ranger. "Excuse me," I said, climbing out of my truck. "Can I ask what you're doing here?" The older guy looked genuinely surprised. "We're on the architectural walking tour. The brochure says this stop has original turn-of-the-century fireplace masonry." I stared at him. "You're standing on my lawn." The woman piped up. It said private tour access included with HOA pass. "I don't even have an HOA pass. I don't have an HOA. I'm the last property on this road that isn't part of Bridal Creek. Or I was." That night, I checked the HOA website, and there it was. The Pressler House, restored by community effort, maintained as a public cultural asset. A whole write-up about ongoing preservation, community-funded renovations, and, get this, guided tours available by appointment. There were photos of my parlor, my rug, my goddamn dog sleeping on the hearth. I scrolled to the bottom and saw it, photography by Lydia Pressler. That was when the real violations started rolling in. Next day, I got a notice tacked to my gate, not mailed, tacked. Non-compliant exterior paint, HOA Form 14B. They didn't like the incongruent shade of green I used on my shutters. Then came a warning about my mailbox being non-standard. It's a cast iron mailbox from 1905. You can't even buy this thing unless you inherit it or win a bidding war on eBay. Then, this part still makes my blood boil. They installed a little speaker box at the corner of my driveway. At first I thought it was one of those mosquito noise things to scare off raccoons. Nope, it was a motion-triggered audio guide. When you walked past it, a cheerful voice said, "Welcome to the Pressler House. Once home to Lydia Pressler's great-grandparents, this beautifully restored example of American Gothic revival." I yanked the thing out of the ground with both hands, took the stake, the box, the stupid battery pack, and stuffed it in a bag marked "Do Not Return." Left it on Lydia's front porch. Next morning, 2 new notices. Vandalism of community historical property. Removal of official interpretive hardware. HOA citation 22.7. Now here's the real kicker. I'm not even in the damn HOA, but they had the nerve to print up a map, brand new, glossy, showing Phase 4 expansion of Bridal Creek HOA. My property was highlighted in blue, and at the top, in bold serif letters, pending integration. They just decided I was part of their fiefdom. I was so angry I couldn't sleep. I stayed up until 3 a.m. pacing the hallway, rereading my deed, looking for any crack, any loophole they could be crawling through. The house felt violated, not broken into, worse, claimed. And then came the final straw. I woke up one morning and the glass cabinet in my front room was open. Not broken, not smashed. Opened. My photos had been rearranged. My race medal was gone. A little antique plaque had been placed on the shelf instead. It read, "Original cabinet, estimated 1889, contents curated for period accuracy." That's when I realized this wasn't about community or history or even tourism. This was personal. Lydia was trying to erase me from this house and turn it back into what it had been, hers. At first, I told myself this could still be handled like adults. Big mistake. I started by doing what you're supposed to do. I gathered up every document I had. The deed, the title insurance, the map with boundary lines from the county clerk's office. I even printed the old auction listing with the words "No HOA affiliation" in bold at the bottom, just in case anyone suddenly developed amnesia. Then I marched my polite little ass to the Bridal Creek HOA office. It's in this weird converted cottage that smells like lemon cleaner and unresolved power issues. You know the vibe. The receptionist, a woman named Dana with a headset and zero eye contact, didn't even look up when I walked in. Just said, "Name and appointment?" "No appointment," I said. "Elijah Maris. I'm here about my house being included in your fake historical tour and your pending integration map, which, by the way, is illegal." That got her attention. She blinked, typed something, then said, "Please have a seat. Lydia will see you shortly." "Of course she will," I muttered. 10 minutes later, I'm in her office. same glassy smile, same unnerving calm, like I'd just interrupted her aromatherapy session. "Elijah," she said, like we were old college friends bumping into each other at Whole Foods, "to what do I owe the pleasure?" I laid the file on her desk. "I'm not in your HOA. I've never signed anything. Your organization has no authority over my property. Remove me from your website, your maps, and your tour program immediately." She didn't even touch the papers, just tilted her head. "Have you considered how much your property benefits from our involvement? Increased visibility, property value, protection of historical integrity." I leaned in. "Lydia, you drilled a plaque into my fence. You installed a speaker on my driveway, and someone was inside my house. That's not historical integrity, that's trespassing." She had the audacity to look offended. "I don't know what you're implying, Elijah, but no one associated with the HOA would ever enter your home without permission." "Then explain the new display tag in my cabinet." She didn't flinch. "I'm sure there's a reasonable explanation. Our volunteers are passionate about heritage preservation. Maybe someone got carried away." I stood up. "This is your one and only warning. The next step is legal." Her eyes went cold. That little museum director mask slipped just for a second. "I'd advise against escalating, Elijah. You'll find the community doesn't look kindly on disruptors." Disruptors, like I'm some kind of activist or criminal for wanting to live in peace. So I went straight to City Hall next, filed a formal complaint, gave them copies of everything, deed, maps, photos, screenshots of the HOA site. I sat there with a very polite clerk named Greg while he typed with 2 fingers and promised someone would follow up shortly. That was 3 weeks ago. No follow-up, no calls, not even a postcard. I went back. Greg wasn't there. The new clerk said, "Oh, the file is still under review. There's some zoning ambiguity we're clarifying." Zoning ambiguity? Yes, apparently there was a boundary expansion filed by the HOA last year that's still being processed. Filed, not approved, but enough to give them cover for what they're doing. I even talked to a lawyer, local guy, well-meaning. He read through my stuff, said I had a strong case if I could prove malicious intent or trespassing. But he warned me, Lydia's well-connected. Her brother is on the town planning board. Her ex-husband is a judge. "It won't be about what's legal," he told me. "It'll be about what you can make stick." So yeah, I tried the official route, the emails, the appointments, the polite folders full of proof. You know what I got? More tours, more cars, more plaques. At some point, they even started calling my property the Jewel of Bridal Creek in the neighborhood newsletter. I sat on my porch one night just staring at that stupid sign on my fence thinking, she's not just trying to control my house, she's trying to write me out of it. And that's when it clicked. This wasn't about zoning, or maps, or brochures. It was about Lydia's ego, her obsession with legacy, and I was standing in the middle of the one place she couldn't rewrite. So I stopped waiting for the system to fix it, and I started planning how to break hers. I didn't find it by digging through old blueprints or filing some magic FOIA request. I found it in a box of junk from the attic I hadn't touched since I moved in. I was up there on a Sunday afternoon, trying to cool off, both literally and emotionally. It had been another weekend of strangers wandering past my fence with pamphlets, treating my porch like a goddamn exhibit. So I'm sitting in the dust, picking through boxes like maybe I'll find an old bottle of whiskey I forgot I hid during my drinking days. I didn't. Instead, I found a dented old metal file box. No lock, just one of those busted hinges that gives up if you breathe near it. I opened it, expecting receipts or nails or dead spiders. Inside were letters. Dozens. Tied with twine like some kind of romantic cliché. I almost tossed them, but one envelope caught my eye. It had a name in cursive I recognized immediately. Lydia Pressler. The return address? This house. My house. But not from her. To her. From her father. I sat down, untied the bundle, and started reading. And that's when I realized this whole thing was personal, obsessively personal. Her father had grown up here. The Presslers had owned the house for 3 generations, but he wasn't sentimental about it. In fact, the letters were full of bitterness. He talked about how the family lost the house after years of financial messes and how Lydia had refused to let it go. She'd spent years begging him to fight the foreclosure, even offered to buy it herself in secret. But he said no over and over. Here's the line that punched me in the gut. "Let it go, Liddy. The house is just a shell. You're the one keeping it haunted." He even said the bank offered her first rights before auctioning it off, and she refused, said she didn't want to reward vultures. Guess who the vulture was? Me. She watched this place fall apart, didn't lift a finger, then decided I wasn't worthy of it once it was whole again. But the twist? That wasn't even the best part. At the bottom of the file box, under the letters, was a manila envelope. Inside was a notarized transfer deed from 2004, not for the house, for the land. It turns out Lydia's great-grandfather sold off the eastern third of the property in exchange for a silent easement, not to a neighbor, to the state. Why? Because there's a buried fiber optic line that runs directly under my backyard, part of an old Cold War infrastructure project that still exists in the state's emergency comms network. It was supposed to be kept off the books, private, unlisted, maintained through third-party contracts, which meant this patch of land, my land, has a binding restriction. It cannot legally fall under HOA jurisdiction without violating a state-level infrastructure protection clause. Basically, the one thing Lydia cannot do is claim this land for any collective civic program, which means this whole living heritage thing? Dead in the water. She either didn't know, or she knew, and was trying to bury it before someone else found out. That's when everything clicked. The fake tours, the fake historic status, the sudden expansion map. It wasn't about tours or culture. It was about locking in jurisdiction before anyone noticed what ran beneath this ground. She wasn't just trying to reclaim her family's old house. She was trying to seize control of a piece of land with untouchable value, legally protected, state-monitored, and quietly powerful. And I was the inconvenient bastard who lived on top of it. So now I had it. The nuke. A legal, documented, state-protected reason this land couldn't be touched by an HOA. Lydia couldn't turn it into a historic district. She couldn't annex it, regulate it, decorate it, tour guide it, or QR code it. Not without pissing off a state agency that doesn't like people sniffing around its underground toys. And yet I didn't go marching down to the HOA office, flinging the deed in her face. Because I'd learned something over the past few weeks, Lydia didn't back down when she was wrong. She doubled down, with a smile. And if I just hit her with the legal hammer, she'd spin it like I was a paranoid recluse with a conspiracy theory and a grudge against civic pride. No, I needed something cleaner. I needed to flip the story before she even realized it was happening. So here's what I did. First, I made a few quiet calls. One to a local reporter I knew through a client, guy named Andy who covers town politics and weird human interest stuff. Loves stories with a twist. I asked him, how would you feel about a historic house tour that isn't what it seems? He was interested before I even finished the sentence. Second, I scanned every single document I found. The letters, the old easement map, the fiber line schematic, the notarized restriction, and I sent them to a law student I know named Rachel. She owed me a favor after I restored an antique drafting desk for her thesis presentation. She reviewed it, looped in her internship mentor, and confirmed what I suspected. If Lydia had knowingly overridden that easement restriction, even just by declaring HOA coverage, she could be looking at state-level fraud. Third, I put together a little exhibit. I turned my living room into a mock museum, hung up some of the old Pressler letters with sensitive stuff redacted, printed the map, and framed it. Put together a timeline. When the HOA claimed my house, when the speaker was installed, when the tours started, and pinned them to a corkboard like I was solving a murder. Then I made a sign and put it out by the fence, right where tourists usually gathered for the weekend tour. The truth behind the Pressler house, one day only, real owner, real history, no HOA filters. I expected maybe 5 people to show up. I got 37, including 2 board members from the HOA and a local podcast host who live-streamed the whole thing. But the best part? Lydia didn't even know it was happening because I didn't put it online. No tags, no RSVPs, just word of mouth. She found out the next morning when the story hit the local paper. Front page, Pressler house owner reveals hidden history and possible HOA overreach. They ran a photo of my corkboard and a quote from one of Lydia's own neighbors saying, "I thought this was a community program. Now I'm not so sure what we're being sold." After that, I knew Lydia would come storming in, so I got ready. Because now it was my turn to host the tour. She showed up 3 days later. No knock, no call. Just Lydia Pressler power walking up my driveway in a cream blazer and that tight little expression she wears when she's about to say something very polite and very threatening. She had a manila folder in her hand and 2 HOA board members trailing behind her like Secret Service. I didn't even blink. I met them on the porch with a cup of coffee and the kind of smile you wear when you've been waiting for this exact moment. "Elijah," she said, voice honey sweet but tight around the edges, "we need to have a conversation." "Sure," I said, stepping aside. Let's do it on the porch. I find it helps me think when I'm sitting in a place you tried to turn into a living museum." One of the board guys coughed awkwardly. Lydia didn't sit. Instead, she handed me the folder like she was delivering a cease and desist from God himself. "This is your official removal notice from the Bridal Creek Community Heritage Program, effective immediately." "Oh no," I said, mock gasping. "How will the public survive without audio-guided tours of my kitchen?" She ignored that. "Additionally, we're requesting you take down your defamatory signage, cease all public events conducted under false claims, and retract any statements made to the press that suggest impropriety on the part of the HOA." I flipped the folder open. All it said was Resolution 8B. No details, no signatures, just empty, dressed-up paperwork. I looked back up. "Cool, now let me show you something." I led them into the living room where my corkboard exhibit was still set up, only now I'd added a little surprise. A laptop on a stand, looping a video Rachel helped me put together. It started with a drone view of the neighborhood, borrowed footage, public domain, then a red circle around my property, then an overlay showing the state-protected fiber line running right under my yard. Cut to scan of the easement document. Letter from Lydia's father. "The land is not yours, Liddy. Let it be." Cut to me on camera, looking right into the lens. They didn't just overstep, they knew, and they did it anyway. It ended with a quiet frame. "This land is not for sale, not for rent, not for rewriting." The board members stared. Lydia didn't. She didn't even look at the screen. Just stood there, jaw clenched, hands frozen at her sides. The way a chess player looks when they finally realize they've been playing someone who already checkmated them 7 moves ago. "You forged a cultural claim on land you legally can't touch," I said quietly. Then trespassed, then hosted public tours, and then tried to silence me when I pushed back. The older board member, his name was Craig, I think, turned to her. "You knew about the easement?" She started, then stopped. "It's not that simple?" "It's exactly that simple," I said. "And I sent the full package to the state office yesterday, certified mail, with tracking." Craig looked like he aged 10 years in 5 seconds. The other board member actually sat down. Then came the cherry on top. "You'll probably want to update your website too," I added, handing her a printed screenshot. "Looks like someone archived the Pressler House page before you took it down, including the photo credits, all listed as provided by L. Pressler." She snatched it out of my hand like a snake striking. I let her stew in it for a minute, then I asked, calm as a monk, "Anything else you want to threaten me with, or are we good?" She didn't answer. They left without another word. Later that night, I saw her car parked outside City Hall, and the next morning, I saw something even better, an emergency HOA board meeting notice posted at the community center, open to the public. So I did what anyone would do, I made flyers. "Come hear the real history, what your HOA didn't tell you." Passed them out at the coffee shop, taped them to the gym door, left a stack at the farmer's market next to the locally sourced cucumbers. By the time the meeting started, the room was standing room only, and I had front row seats. That HOA meeting was supposed to be routine. Budget reports, garden committee updates, a cookie table with 0 flavor, and maximum smug. Instead, it turned into a full-on community reckoning. By the time I got there, people were already gathering outside. Retirees with folding chairs, young parents with strollers, a teenager with a boom mic. I kid you not. Word had spread. The Pressler House story was all anyone in Bridal Creek was talking about. Lydia showed up fashionably late, in a tailored navy suit, hair pinned like she was running for office. She walked straight to the front without acknowledging a single person, eyes locked forward like the damn Terminator. The meeting opened with the usual fake pleasantries. Then Craig, the older board member, stood up and said, "Before we begin, we'd like to address recent concerns regarding the Living Heritage Program and the designation of Mr. Elijah Maris's property." The room got quiet. He looked over at me, gave the smallest nod, and kept going. "It's come to our attention that the program was expanded beyond its approved scope. Some properties were included without consent, and documentation presented to justify that inclusion may have been misleading." He didn't say Lydia's name. He didn't have to. All eyes turned to her. And Lydia, queen of the pleasant lie, empress of the weaponized smile, just folded her hands and said, "I acted in the best interest of the community. That property is historically significant. I was preserving its value." That's when I stood up. I didn't raise my voice, didn't point fingers. I just held up the easement document and said, "This land has a standing state restriction. It can't be claimed, curated, or commercialized under any HOA structure. Lydia knew. She had the documents. Her family signed the agreement. People gasped. But then came the knockout. Andy, the local reporter, stood up in the back. He was holding a stack of papers. "I just want to confirm for the record," he said, "that Ms. Pressler listed herself as the photographic rights holder for content used in HOA marketing, specifically photos taken inside a private residence she did not own." Lydia tried to pivot. "I was documenting for cultural continuity. The HOA reimbursed printing costs." "Right," Andy cut in. "That reimbursement came out of community dues, correct? About $6,000 if I'm reading this ledger right." More gasps. A woman near the front, I think her name's Sandra, always wears a visor, stood up, furious. "You charged us $6,000 to spy on someone's living room?" Now it was chaos. People shouting questions, someone yelling, "You lied to us." Another person waved a printed flyer for my exhibit and asked, "Why didn't you tell us about the easement?" Lydia tried to gavel it down, metaphorically since she wasn't even running the meeting anymore. But Craig raised his hand. He looked exhausted, like a man who just realized he backed the wrong horse for 5 years. "We're moving to suspend the Living Heritage Program, effective immediately. All materials, signage, and promotions will be taken down. Furthermore, we're launching a full audit of discretionary spending, including marketing expenses, tour permits, and contractor payments authorized by Ms. Pressler." Lydia stood, still calm, too calm. "I acted within my authority," she said. "You all just didn't appreciate the vision." And that's when Walter, that Walter, the 80-year-old vet who walks his dog past my place every day, stood up and said, "Your vision was trespassing on someone else's life and calling it art." Dead silence. Lydia's mouth opened like she was about to reply, but nothing came out. Just a long pause, and then she sat back down. Slowly, like gravity finally found her. The board voted right there. Unanimous. Program shut down. Audit approved. Lydia placed on administrative leave pending investigation. A few people clapped, not a standing ovation, more like tired, slow claps from people realizing they'd just dodged a much bigger bullet than they thought. Afterward, people came up to me in small waves. Some apologized, some asked questions. One guy offered to buy me a beer and said, "You're like the HOA version of Aaron Brockovich." Not the comparison I expected, but hey, I'll take it. Lydia left without a word. And Bridal Creek? Let's just say the vibe shifted, fast. The QR signs came down, the website got wiped. And my fence? One morning I woke up and the plaque was just gone. No note, no explanation, just quiet. For the first time in weeks. A few weeks after the meeting, I was sitting on the porch again, same spot, same coffee mug, same wind chime tapping against the siding. But the vibe was different. No foot traffic, no brochures, no jazz quartet playing softly over a speaker I didn't install. Just quiet. Real quiet. I watched Gus, my old mutt, chasing a squirrel halfway across the yard like he hadn't aged a day. The oak trees swayed just enough to make the sunlight flicker through the leaves, and I thought, this is why I fought. Not for the land itself, not for revenge, not even for the principle, though God knows that played a role. I fought because this little patch of grass and wood and brick was mine, not on paper, not in ego, but in soul. Because when you rebuild yourself from the ground up, you don't let anyone paint over that. Not even someone with a brochure and a historical marker. About a month later, I got a letter from the State Infrastructure Office. Short, official, no fluff. Just said the easement was being reviewed for enhanced protection status and thanked me for bringing inconsistencies to their attention. Pretty sure that's bureaucratic for you caught something we didn't. Good catch, don't make noise. Cool by me, Lydia. She resigned for personal reasons. Moved out of Bridal Creek entirely. Word is she's living somewhere upstate now. No formal charges, just enough heat to make her disappear before she embarrassed anyone further. Someone told me her house is on the market. Listing price dropped 3 times. Not that I'm tracking it. I am. One of the new HOA board members, a guy named Alan, actually stopped by last week. He brought banana bread and said, "I think we owe you more than an apology." I told him the bread was enough. He smiled and said, "We're rewriting the charter." This time with consent as the first rule. I like that. The sign on my fence? Still gone. I never replaced it. Didn't need to. The house speaks for itself. Instead, I made my own sign. Small, subtle, hung just inside the porch screen where only someone standing close would ever see it. It says, "Private Residence," built with 2 hands and 0 permission slips. Every now and then, people still stop and look at the house from the road, but they stay on the sidewalk. No more tour groups, no more pamphlets, just the occasional neighbor waving from their bike, or a dog walker giving a friendly nod. Sometimes they ask if the story was true, if I really exposed the HOA, if the whole underground cable thing actually happened. I just smile and say, yeah, but that's not even the interesting part. Because the best part isn't what got exposed, it's what got protected.